What is up, y'all? It's Mr. Barry here with the Lightning Thief. We're bringing it back again this week. And last week, when we ended, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover had just gotten into the underworld. They bribed Charon, not to be confused with Chiron. They bribed Charon with some golden drachmas to let him in there, even though they're living and everybody else in the underworld is dead. So they've just gotten off his boat, and they're heading towards they're on the path to the underworld. You're going to see what they're heading to. So we'll start right there. I'm not sure what I was expecting. Pearly gates, or a big black portcullis, or something like that. But the entrance to the underworld looked like a cross between airport security and the Jersey Turnpike. That's like the freeway in New Jersey. I just know that because my mom grew up in New Jersey. There were 3 separate entrances under one huge black archway that said, "You are now entering Erebus." Each entrance had a pass-through metal detector with security cameras mounted on top. Beyond this were toll booths manned by black-robed ghouls like Charon. The howling of the hungry animal was really loud now, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. The 3-headed dog Cerberus, who was supposed to guard Hades' door, was nowhere to be seen. The dead queued up in 3 lines. 2 marked attendant on duty, and 1 marked easy death. The easy death line was moving right along. The other 2 were crawling. "What do you figure?" I asked Annabeth. "The fastest line must go straight to the Asphodel Fields," she said. "No contest. They don't want to risk judgment from the court because it might go against them." "There's a court for dead people?" "Yeah, 3 judges. They switch around who sits on the bench. King Minos, Thomas Jefferson, Shakespeare. People like that. Sometimes they look at a life and decide that person needs a special reward. The Fields of Elysium. Sometimes they decide on punishment. But most people, well, they just lived. Nothing special, good or bad, so they go to the Asphodel Fields." "And do what?" Grover said. "Imagine standing in a wheat field in Kansas. Forever." "Harsh," I said. "Not as harsh as that," Grover muttered. "Look." A couple of black-robed ghouls had pulled aside one spirit and were frisking him at the security desk. The face of the dead man looked vaguely familiar. "He's that preacher who made the news, remember?" Grover asked. "Oh, yeah, I did remember now. We'd seen him on TV a couple times at the Yancey Academy dorm. He was this annoying televangelist from upstate New York who'd raised millions of dollars for orphanages and then caught spending the money on stuff for his mansion, like gold-plated toilet seats and an indoor putt-putt golf course. He died in a police chase when his Lamborghini for the Lord went off the cliff." I said, "What are they doing to him?" "Special punishment from Hades," Grover guessed. "The really bad people get his personal attention as soon as they arrive. The kindly ones will set up an eternal torture for him." The thought of the Furies made me shudder. I realized I was in their home territory now. Old Miss Dodds would be licking her lips with anticipation. "But if he's a preacher," I said, "and he believes in a different hell..." Grover shrugged. "Who says he's seeing this place the way we're seeing it? Humans see what they want to see. You're very stubborn, persistent in that way." We got closer to the gates. The howling was so loud now, it shook the ground at my feet, but I still couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Then, about 50 feet in front of us, the green mist shimmered. Standing just where the path split into 3 lanes was an enormous, shadowy monster. I hadn't seen it before because it was half transparent, like the dead, until it moved. It blended with whatever was behind it. Only its eyes and teeth looked solid, and it was staring straight at me. My jaw hung open, and all I could say was, "He's a Rottweiler." I'd always imagined Cerberus as a big black mastiff, but he was obviously a purebred Rottweiler, except for that he was twice the size of a woolly mammoth, mostly invisible, and had 3 heads. The dead walked right up to him, no fear at all. The attendant on duty lines parted on either side of him. The easy death spirits walked right between his front paws and under his belly, which they could do without even crouching. I'm starting to see him better, I muttered. Why is that? I think, Annabeth moistened her lips. I'm afraid it's because we're getting closer to being dead. The dog's middle head craned toward us. It sniffed the air and growled. It can smell the living, I said. But that's okay, Grover said, trembling next to me, because we have a plan. Right, Annabeth said. I'd never heard her voice sound quite so small. A plan. We'd moved towards the monster. The middle head snarled at us, then barked so loudly my eyeballs rattled. Can you understand it? I asked Grover. Oh yeah, he said. I can understand it. What's it saying? I don't think humans have a 4-letter word that translates exactly. I took the big stick out of my backpack, a bedpost I'd broken off Krusty's Safari Deluxe floor model. I held it up and tried to channel happy dog thoughts toward the Cerberus. Alpo commercials, cute little puppies, fire hydrants. I tried to smile like I wasn't about to die. Hey, big fella, I called up. I bet they don't play with you much. Good boy, I said weakly. I waved the stick. The dog's middle head followed the movement. The other two heads trained their eyes on me, completely ignoring the spirits. I had Cerberus's undivided attention. I wasn't sure that was a good thing. Fetch! I threw the stick into the gloom. A good solid throw. I heard it go kerspoosh in the river Styx. Cerberus glared at me, unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. So much for the plan. Cerberus was now making a new kind of growl, deeper down in his 3 throats. Grover said, Percy? Yeah, I just thought you'd want to know. Yeah? Cerberus? He's saying we've got 10 seconds to pray to the god of our choice, and after that, well, he's hungry. Wait, Annabeth said. She started rifling through her backpack. Uh-oh, I thought. 5 seconds, Grover said. Do we run now? Annabeth produced a red rubber ball the size of a grapefruit. It was labeled Waterland, Denver, Colorado. Before I could stop her, she raised the ball and marched straight up to Cerberus. She shouted, See the ball? You want the ball, Cerberus? Sit! Cerberus looked as stunned as we were. All 3 of his heads cocked sideways. 6 nostrils dilated. That means the nostrils are open, like he's smelling the air. Sit! Annabeth called again. I was sure that at any moment she would become the world's largest milk-bone dog biscuit. But instead, Cerberus licked his 3 sets of lips, shifted on his haunches, and sat immediately, crushing a dozen spirits who'd been passing underneath him in the easy death line. The spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated like air let out of tires. Annabeth said, Good boy! She threw Cerberus the ball. He caught it in his middle mouth. It was barely big enough for him to chew, and the other heads started snapping at the middle, trying to get the new toy. Drop it! Annabeth ordered. Cerberus's head stopped fighting and looked at each other. The ball was wedged between 2 of its teeth like a tiny piece of gum. He made a loud, scary whimper and then dropped the ball, now slimy and bitten nearly in half, at Annabeth's feet. Good boy! She picked up the ball, ignoring the monster spit all over it. She turned toward us. Go now! Easy death line. It's faster. I said, but... Now! She ordered in the same tone she was using on the dog. Grover and I inched forward, warily. Cerberus started to growl. Stay! Annabeth ordered the monster. If you want the ball, stay! Cerberus whimpered, but he stayed where he was. What about you? I asked Annabeth as we passed her. I know what I'm doing, Percy, she muttered. At least I'm pretty sure. Grover and I walked between the monster's legs. Please, Annabeth, I prayed. Don't tell him to sit again. We made it through. Cerberus wasn't any less scary looking from the back. Annabeth said, Good dog. She held up the tattered red ball and probably came to the same conclusion I did. If she rewarded Cerberus, there'd be nothing left for another trick. She threw the ball anyway. The monster's left mouth immediately snatched it up, only to be attacked by the middle head, while the right head moaned in protest. While the monster was distracted, Annabeth walked briskly under its belly and joined us at the metal detector. "How did you do that?" I asked her, amazed. "Obedience school," she said breathlessly, and I was surprised to see there were tears in her eyes. When I was little, at my dad's house, we had a Doberman. "Never mind that," Grover said, tugging at my shirt. "Come on." We were about to bolt through the easy death line when Cerberus moaned pitifully from all three heads. Annabeth stopped. She turned to face the dog, which had done a 180 to look at us. Cerberus panted expectantly, the tiny red ball in pieces in a puddle of drool at its feet. "Good boy," Annabeth said, but her voice sounded melancholy and uncertain. The monster's heads turned sideways, as if worried about her. "I'll bring you another ball soon," Annabeth promised, faintly. "Would you like that?" The monster whimpered. I didn't need to speak dog to know Cerberus was still waiting for the ball. "Good dog. I'll come visit you soon. I promise." Annabeth turned to us. "Let's go." Grover and I pushed through the metal detector, which immediately screamed and set off flashing red lights. "Unauthorized possessions! Magic detected!" Cerberus started to bark. We burst through the easy death gate, which started even more alarms blaring, and raced into the underworld. A few minutes later, we were hiding, out of breath, in the rotten trunk of an immense black tree as security ghouls scuttled past, yelling for backup from the Furies. Grover muttered, "Well, Percy, what have we learned today?" "That three-headed dogs prefer rubber balls over sticks?" "No," Grover told me. "We've learned that your plans really, really bite." I wasn't sure about that. I thought maybe Annabeth and I had the right idea. Even here in the underworld, everybody, even monsters, needed a little attention once in a while. I thought about that as we waited for the ghouls to pass. I pretended not to see Annabeth wipe a tear from her cheek, as she listened to the mournful keening of Cerberus in the distance, longing for his new friend.